Hello again. I noticed something from so many people over time that I thought maybe it'll be part of the solution if I talk about it. And it's not uncommon for anyone to notice this and see it, but I don't think we talk about it enough. Now, it could be being talked about in other spaces, but I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I'm really not on social media like that. I don't. I've lost the tolerance and patience for a lot of it, and not because I'm like this person disagrees with me or no, I don't care about that. It's more like watching paint dry to me now, and I can't tell you why. The scrolling and all that doesn't do anything for me, and there's sometimes I wish it did, but it really don't. Mostly I'm just like, why? Why am I doing this? And I feel like the odd man out, and I don't know what to do about that other than just be me. Anyway, what I notice is the fear of vulnerability is widespread. Recently, maybe really think about that fear of vulnerability. It's like the fear of vulnerability plus the fear of weakness or perception of weakness is part of why we have such ideas in our collective throughout about closeness with each other. And that is born out of some truth. We don't have fear of just nothing, right? Like you're afraid of being vulnerable that makes you weak. No, you're afraid. Most people are afraid of being vulnerable because they were vulnerable folk. And then folk took advantage of that vulnerability. And so they had to build some strength to keep on moving. If they're still here and they're above the age of 27, they still have fear of vulnerability, there's a good chance up until that point they had caregivers or some kind of nurturing adult take advantage of their vulnerability. In other words, you crying and the adult tells you not to cry because they're annoyed or upset that you're crying and they're busy or they have poor emotional regulation, so they don't help you with your emotional regulation, that kind of stuff. And you're confused by that as a child, so you end up growing up not feeling like you can be safe in vulnerability. And then when you finally grow that in yourself, you run into other adults who probably had some same issues growing up in their childhood or not, because sometimes that's not always the case. And they see your vulnerability as something to exploit. And then you end up losing again and again and again. So you get to a point where you're like, I don't want to be vulnerable. Look, I think, now if y'all indulge me for a moment, I'm not intended to cuss. But this is the terminology. The terminology is what it is. It's like the idea of FOMO is why fuck boys exist. Fear of missing out on something else, but also fear of vulnerability too. Those two things combined, for example, creates that dynamic, which creates a person who does take advantage, of somebody else's vulnerability for just physical pleasure, right? For example, I got something in my eye. Y'all excuse me. Anyway, and I don't know why it's in there. Cause I ain't got nothing flying around here. I just finished cleaning up the pad, and everything is in its rightful place. So I don't know why I would have any kind of specks of dust anywhere. I've been thorough today. Squirrel. Anyway, so also fear of vulnerability is what causes people to not make kinship with close friends. In other words, a lot of people walk around wearing masks or walk around in a different identity of themselves around even people they actually like to be around. I know y'all hit a train. It's nearby where I am. I'm near like trains, and I'm like fascinated by it. Anyway, so I think that leads us to the problem of closeness and togetherness, is because so many people take advantage of the vulnerability of others, and then there are people who are the victims of that have to toughen themselves and still themselves and create barriers and boundaries so that they are not hurt. Now, how do we combat that? What do we do about that? And by we, I mean individuals. Now, I know I've been talking about waxing philosophical and argumentative about therapy and the need for more therapists and more spaces and more normalization of therapy. And right now, I'm talking about on the individual level. Now, if you feel like you one of them people who don't care and you just gonna go along and get along and do just for you, then I guess I'm not talking to you. And I'm not knocking nobody for that decision. I didn't say this before. I have my moments where I have to chastise my own brain from judging, but I'm telling you, I am really not knocking nobody for just doing that. At this point, there are times I question whether or not I should be just doing me, and there are times I just do me. But there's always some part of me in the back of my mind thinking, okay, so what can I do to help this environment that I'm in? Even if it's just using my words. Now, if you are aware of someone that is taking advantage of the vulnerability of another person, I'm not saying go out there and snitch. I'm saying if you're their friend, can you be a better friend to them by being a better friend by saying something? Right? I once had a friend who went to school with me, and she knew that there was another friend who was struggling financially. I'm giving you an example because I can only use examples from my own life, to help you understand what I'm saying sometimes. I once had a friend who was going to school with, I was going to school with, and it was three of us kind of hung out for the most part, maybe four of us in a group. And all of us was struggling to get through financially in college. That's just what happens. But one of us was struggling a bit more than the others. But she was very, very generous. Sometimes she was a little scatterbrained in the cutest way, at least I thought. But she was vulnerable in a way that sometimes she had a tendency to be gullible and realize, wasn't hip to the game. One of these friends I was very, very close with, and she financially took advantage of the one friend. It's like, I need help with this thing or another. It's very important to me. I think it was a test or something for a job. And the friend who was doing the worst off financially gave her the money. None of us knew this until after the fact. And come to find out after the fact, she's like, yeah, no, I never gave her the money back. I didn't really need the money. She used the money for something else. I don't know what it was, but she told me about it because I was the closest to her of the group. And I'm like, why'd you think I'd be cool with that? No, I'm not going to go tell her your business, but I'm not going to be cool with you. Like, I'm going to keep on bringing it up until you get that girl her money back. That kind of stuff. I don't know, to this day, I don't think she ever did get that girl her money back. But never let up on it. Like, me and you ain't going to be 100% cool until you do that. Like, I'm going to still love you, and we're going to, be all right with each other, but I'm not going to trust you. The fact that you would do something like that, and this girl don't have money for food to eat because she gave you, because you thought you wasn't going to be able to do what you needed to do to get by. That kind of stuff. Being a challenge to the things you see that you know ain't right. Now, sometimes it's hard. I'm gonna be honest with you. Sometimes it's hard being the outlier and being a challenge being a challenge friend. It's not always hard for Aquarius. We just don't know how to not. Okay? But not everybody is Aquarius. I mean, not every Aquarius is made the same. I'm going to say that right here, right now. But we have that particular gift that we should choose to utilize it and strengthen it and grow it. Solid backbone to be able to speak up when nobody else wants to. But you think that's easy. We're able to do it. It's not easy to deal with, no more than it's easy for anybody else to deal with it when they're the outlier and basically you're saying something that is unpopular or something that may not be received well. The same backlash anybody else get, I would get. Okay? Like I mentioned before, a lot of the stuff that I had to deal with when I was in my master's program is because I was speaking up when nobody else was speaking. I'm going to tell you what, Squirrel, side street, there's this couple called the Coreys. And everybody rants and raves about how their technique is so great in counseling. You know what I did as a person who grew up in the lower Ninth Ward in New Orleans when I saw the Coreys? The first thought I thought about the Coreys was they're not culturally competent at all. The way they are going about their therapy would not work on someone who is urban and have melanin in their skin in any way, shape, or form at that time. But everybody rant and raved of how expert they are, how well they were received in their technique. And I was just annoyed. It was just another example to me of a lack of cultural competence and nobody else seeing it, or if they see it, they're not saying nothing. So it's like, no, none of that technique makes sense for anybody other than someone who's Anglo-Saxon white, which is fine if you're trying to reach that audience. But you're not going to be culturally competent with someone from any other community other than that with that technique. We need to do something else. And I wasn't heard. And it was rebuffed. Now, some of my classmates got a kick out of it because these people were well known and like very popular in the counseling community. But speaking up did not earn me any friends in the faculty. I'm just saying though. But sometimes speaking up and saying what's up ain't right, even when it's unpopular, even when you're going to lose or have a potential to lose out on something, is the right thing to do sometimes. And sometimes being quiet is too. Another example, and to this day, I don't even know if this is accurate or valid or whatever the case may be. And there's a part of me that still disagrees with it. So I worked for the DA's office in Jefferson Parish. And I worked in a diversion. I think I've mentioned this before. I worked in diversion where different types of lower level crimes and DUIs and thefts and stuff like this and petty drug cases would come through this office for readjustment and diverting them from jail, getting them into a program where they receive counseling and redirection of those behaviors so that we can possibly prevent them from having to go to jail. Unfortunately, this program costs money to very, very poor communities. Now, I'm not saying somebody who got DUI shouldn't have to pay their way. They should. But I really did have the biggest problem in the world with the fact that we have poor inner city youth who are just trying to make their way in the world, when a lot of them are either kicked out of mom and daddy's house or age out of the foster care system or some other thing that makes them have to grow up before they have an opportunity to even get any kind of education for a trade or a college or a skill. And they're just stressed out. So what do? They're smoking marijuana to ease their suffering. Now, we've gotten to a place now we understand that marijuana is not dope. It's not akin to other illicit substances. It can actually be helpful. And not for nothing, there's some folks that have been saying that for years that's been branded as dope heads since the 60s and 70s. But we live and we learn, don't we? Well, when these kids used to come through, I used to be so angry because half the time some of the staff would be there and very patient and attentive to them and go above and beyond. But then some of the staff just treated these people like this is just a job and I don't really care. There's no urgency. I don't have to really do for you. To me, I'm like, these people are paying into this system. Every time they come in here, they got to pay us to test them, to drug test them, to cut their hair and test that. And then they got to sit and listen to us, like chastising them almost. And then they're mandated to go to counseling. So in my therapeutic techniques, I would definitely take my time and be unique to those who need that unique space for them. I didn't treat it like it was a punitive process. I took it seriously as a therapeutic process and gave them kindness and honor in a way that they probably had not received up until that point. Because I tell you what, there was nobody that I saw in that program that looked like they came from a space where it was comfortable. Like there was just some privileged, you know what, that was just being selfish and ended up in that situation. I didn't see not one person like that. I saw people trying to do their best and struggling. Anyway, there were moments in which I had the biggest feelings of anger in any career setting because of the people that did not take those people seriously and treated them like they were throwaways or treated them like they were being punished as opposed to being helped, which is what our job was. Now, I had a really close friend who felt the same way I felt about the diversion program, and she tried her best to help. She had all the skill sets to be the boss, At least I thought. I don't know if she is now. I hope she is. But she would keep her mouth shut when she would see things she know wasn't right. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Why are you not saying what this woman is doing? And at one point, she was so our boss was so intimidated by my presence, or decided that she was gonna make an example of me, or just felt like having fun. I ain't never in my life, I hope to never encounter or be a mean girl in my 60s and 70s, but she was mean girl like a mug. And when I say mean girl, the definition of mean girl. And so she would do little mean girl stuff to me. Like at one point, I had a major surgery, and I had this sweater that I told her, like, I have this sweater, I want to wear it, and it's my comfort sweater, and I'm gonna dress a little bit down in the office since we don't have a whole bunch of clients when I come back from surgery. But I'm gonna need to be comfortable if I'm gonna come back within, a couple weeks. And she's like, oh no, that's fine. And I get to the office and she did nothing but make fun of me in front of everybody. This is my boss. And then walked me around the office and did the same. Do you see what she got on today? And as my boss, I'm like, I'm shooketh. I'm shocked. But here's my friend sitting there, once again, not saying or doing anything about it. Not reporting it, nothing. And I'm like, I know you lying. So I go my happy behind home and go put on something that's way uncomfortable for my body after having this surgery. Just so I won't have to deal with that and keep my job going. At the time, I'm an intern, so I can't be messing this up. I'm too close to graduation. I can't go off on this lady. So I know y'all like, say it, you didn't do nothing about this? No, I'm not trying to mess this up. I'm trying to make a better life for myself and my kids at this point. And her little ignorance wasn't going to stop me. But the point I'm making to you is there were so many people in that office that witnessed that and did nothing about it. That's some of the stuff I had to deal with in the counseling community here. And even when I myself reported it, that woman kept her job, I think. Although they got audited, from what I know, from what I understand. But what I'm saying to you is, even after that happened, I still had my job for a little while. Because again, I was an intern. When my internship ended, I got another job somewhere else because I was good at my job. Great at my job. It wasn't hard for me to get another job. I had great grades. I graduated within the top 10 or 15 of my class. So that wasn't hard. But the point was, I saw so many levels of things, at certain points that somebody could have done something about and nobody did nothing about it. So a lot of mess got to keep perpetuating itself and going over and over and over and over again. Or spreading out worse. And it's not just true for one career area. I'm saying whistleblowers should be everywhere. There's a difference between snitching and whistleblowing. Whistleblowing is beneficial and helpful to all. If you're being honest and truthful and coming from a place of non-malice, that is beneficial to all people. So let's make it even more broad. When you see someone you know that may be popular within your friend group or something like that, or your friend group holds ideals that you know damn well that's not you, but you go along to get along so you don't have to be without your friend group. I know this is a hard ask for some folk, but sometimes you're going to have to say something. Sometimes you're going to have to say something. When you hear somebody talking about violent things and glorifying violent behavior, or talking about things that you know make you feel incredibly uncomfortable, after a while you start getting comfortable in spaces that you were uncomfortable if you don't say something long enough. Kind of like that. See, one of the biggest problems I had, even when I was a military spouse, was I loved the coasties and all that stuff, but there are things that happened to me within that dynamic that should not have happened. That should not have happened. But people were so afraid to say anything or do anything about it, so they just kept quiet because something bad's gonna happen to me. Here's the truth. Something bad might happen to you, but you might just be the person that changes it all. You just might be. I happen to know to this day, from the work that I did and the stink that I raised, black women are more protected at my previous alma mater. And it's nationally known what they did, even if they kept their jobs. Sometimes shaming them is enough. Sometimes it is. And sometimes you gotta send folk to prison if they're doing something illegal or wrong or whatever for long enough. But something must be said and something must be done by those who have the ability to speak. Now, if you ain't got no ability to speak, then I guess. But what's the loss at this point? Like, do you really need your friend groups or your social group so bad that you can't speak up when something ain't right? Then who are you really? That's those masks we wear to keep our friends because we get scared of loneliness. Loneliness sucks. But I don't know. It feels like it would suck more to not be honest with myself about who I truly am via sitting with folk we know ain't right in the head, ain't right in the heart. A lot of these folks that's out here committing large acts of violence have a lot of folk around them. They know damn well ain't right. And nobody said or did anything because they want to go along and get along. Look, you ain't got to invite me to the potluck, but if I see that you ain't right, I might try first to see if we can get you some help. But if that don't work, somebody got to know what's going on. Period. I don't care what kind of angsty stuff I got going on inside of me, but somebody got to know what's going on. Again, there's a difference between a snitch and a whistleblower. Whistleblowers always in history get their butt handed to them on a silver platter, but they change things, don't they? That's a huge sacrifice. And it's our biggest heroes in our communities are the whistleblowers, or the people who speak out on things that others might deem crazy or impossible or nonsense. One of the most egregious things I think are still going on to this day is that when I was in that diversion program, knowing that there were dispensaries popping up all over Colorado and Arizona, and I saw that being big business once people took the stigma off of it, but yet we still got our young men and ladies in prison for selling weed. What you doing? What we doing? What is that? I know that was a side street, but I go on those sometimes. I loved and hated my job at that time because there was so much stuff going on within it that would stress me, and I was already stressed in my regular daily life. My life was constant 24-hour stress with very little sleep. They'll go to work and think, if I don't come here and do my job and be here for these people, I don't know what's going to happen to them. Because it's me and two or three other people that actually give a damn. And of the people that give a damn, maybe one of them will speak up when the boss would do something that was unscrupulous. And even then, it was out of a place of like deference or respect. Look, somebody got to have a smart mouth sometime. I guess that was me. At one point, I was so mad after everything went down with all them people. It's like, and this is the particular one, I was like, I ain't say it exactly this way. I used the cuss words. It's like, I don't know where I heard it from, but I think it was appropriate for that person. And she shit out of her mouth and she eat out her ass. So with that one that walked me around the office telling everybody how bad my outfit was. Like, what kind of mean girl are you? You're a lawyer. In your 60s. Ew. I mean, I still had staples in my stomach when she did this. And this is the person they had over that program at the time. That one day she would seem like she gave a damn, the next day it's just the words, the actions, and the vibrations that made me feel like these people need a real true advocate for them. But at the end of the day, the reason why I told you that story is the one I thought could and should be the warrior for those people after I left. I think in my heart was so broken because she allowed it to continue when she could have done something about it. She was strong enough to do something about it and speak up and get this lady out of there. There was enough evidence, there was enough everything, and nothing was done. I was enraged. I was enraged by all of it because I'm like, you guys are so talented, so brilliant, have such big hearts. You are so capable. Why are you letting just a few people take over something that could be beautiful and massive and helpful to this city? What is wrong with y'all? That was my whole thing. So on one hand, you have the people at the college just stepping on the necks of everybody who was female and melanated. And then on the other hand, anybody who was associated with them would go to different other agencies and companies and even to the board. So they had it was like a monopoly. They had control over everything. It's almost like a mafia within a counseling community, and everybody was scared of them but me. But truth be told, at the end of the day, I'm sitting here doing what I'm doing now, and I'm not amongst them. But I still get the help. There wasn't wrong about being afraid of it. The end result of what they've done. But nah, I still won. And I feel like if I'm gonna call them out, I gotta call me out, right? And I'm telling y'all this for a reason. It could be you that stops something, the next thing. It could be you that keeps people honest. It could be you that keeps the ethics on board when you do have a statute of ethics, honey. And whatever career or whatever field you choose, it could be you. Because see, what I did after that is expose them all in my own way. So they couldn't take from me what I earned. I let it go. So just tired of looking at them and looking at it and fighting for it. And that's the part that I have the most regret about, because being that full champion would have been to keep my license and keep doing counseling and go through every damn hoop they tried to put me through and beat them at their own game and create all of the things that I've seen in my dreams and in my imagination for the communities at large. That would have been what the people needed. And I did not do that. This is one of my biggest regrets, is getting tired and sitting down somewhere. But I had other things to do, you see. I still did other things that I needed to do for my community at large. And I was able to accomplish those things. But it's one of those things where it's like, there are things I've done that nobody will never know about. And the ego sometimes suffers. I've gotten past it in a lot of ways. But there are things I can talk about now. And the reason why I'm advocating for at least more people to be in a space of understanding that going along to get along and just being quiet and going to your house ain't working no more. You know? The sense of community comes back. Then we have a little bit more love, care, and understanding for each other. Because see, this still is all about what I've been talking about for at least a week or two. Because if you care about your community and the people within it, it's less chance that you're going to go out there and commit large acts of violence, isn't it? If there are people who you know damn well is going to say something and speak up when they see something not right, you're less likely. Those who would do something sideways are less likely to do those things because they know somebody's going to check and balance them. But not enough of folks doing that. Not enough folks have been doing that. It was time for it to happen. And I'm glad more and more people are doing it. But it don't have to always be on a large scale. Sometimes you could be the person in your workplace that reports the person who's a sexual harasser. You'd be a person in your workplace that reports the person who's stealing. I don't think everyone is above healing and recovering and becoming the best version of themselves at some point. I already tell you, y'all define your characters, and then the next day you can do something different and define your character again. Okay? I'm not saying people are throwaway because you didn't expose them or do something like that. No. I'm saying that if you do that, you do create the opportunity for healing. Because if unethical behavior persists in consistency, then people tend to lose that sense of community, that want to belong. Because who wants to belong to something that hurts them? See, that was my reasoning. Even with the disappointment, I understand it was sound for me. Why would I want to belong to an organization that hurt me and that I see on a routine basis hurting others? And I see even the government bodies know about the situation and ain't doing nothing about it. Let me help them in my own way, because I can't do it that way, because that ain't even real help. I don't know what that is. Y'all just gaming the system, using Medicaid to take advantage of po folk and not really giving them no help. MHRs. And also taking advantage of young counselors who's coming out of college for their labor. You ain't gonna never. I don't think that zero things is better than MHRs, but I think MHRs is not far from zero things. I think it's a piss poor band-aid on a very larger problem, much larger problem. Because if MHR is gonna be helpful, in my humble opinion, they have to have a systemic approach. Mom, dad, any kind of caregivers need to be taken care of as well. And also helping them with financial education. Some of them need that. Helping them with a pathway to college or trade, the children, if they want that. A systemic approach if you want to heal something. We don't put band-aids on it. That's like drinking because you're depressed. What you mean to tell me the children, now if you think I'm just shitting on MHRs, come on, no. It just don't make no sense. Why would you give the least qualified, and when I say the least qualified, the least experienced, they're baseline qualified, the least experienced people the largest problems to deal with? You mean to tell me the children in the inner cities, children in the lower economic households with the largest emotional difficulties and problems, who have a lot of the parents who have those same issues, you're going to give people who fresh out of college, those children, and expect them to help with those type of wounds, trauma, and problems? Actually help them long term? Come on. We know it's not. We know it's just something. Just say you're doing something, but nothing's really getting done when you don't put the most qualified people in the areas that need the most help. And then don't pay them counselors nothing. Come on. Come on. We need to cut that out too. If we gonna talk, let's talk. Let's be real. And also, not for nothing. Again, I ain't gonna lie. I wasn't gentle sometimes when I spoke up. And I've worked on that. But sometimes some people just need to be told straight up and direct. One of my teachers didn't even finish his qualifications and got his doctorate from that school. And I'm just like, are you serious right now? We can do that? And I'm saying people try to make me give them more stuff in order to be able to do my job, even though I was actually helping my community. And he hadn't even had 2 counseling sessions, maybe 3. And we need 150 hours just to get our master's degree. So I don't even know how he pulled off that magic trick, or I do know. Everybody knew. And nobody did nothing about it. Stuff like that. See, I spoke. They're like, oh, she went crazy. No, I went angry. I call it divine rage, you know. But we all need to have a little fire in our belly and say something and speak up. Because I cared. I cared a lot. Not just about myself, but about the babies that I was seeing and the people that I was helping. It was like I was struggling with a bag of rocks, and there were people around that could help me carry them, and they just jeered and laughed at me instead of helping me carry them. So, sis went off. I'm not advocating for you to go off. That's the point. That's the opposite of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is speak up when you see something. Speak up when you hear your friends talking about violent things. Yeah, go talk to their mama and dad. I don't care. If you have a buddy that's saying some bigoted or racist things, it's not cute. Be the one to say that's not okay. Not just because you have a black friend in the room or a Hispanic friend in the room either. Say it's not okay when everybody in the room don't have no melanin. Because I know how that goes down too. If you know it's not okay, say something. Well, I won't be invited to the, barbecues and the potlucks if I say something. Then don't go. And tell them why. And if enough of y'all don't go and tell them why, they might start changing their tune and at least behaving differently. Or considering a different point of view. And I'll tell you this, I am open and welcoming to everyone, even those who are ignorant. I done told y'all about this spot I go to. And one of my good friends introduced me to it, and I've been going for years ever since. I love it. I can smoke my cigars there. Have a good scotch there. This is some live music, and it's wonderful. And almost nobody knows about it, even though it's been there for a long time. My favorite thing about it is that even locals don't know about this place for real, for real. Not all of them. And it's like, this is like a comfy zone that I get to have, and nobody knows who I am. Well, the regulars know me, but you know what I mean. But even in this spot, I'm kind of not the norm of regular. So from time to time, I have somebody come in and do a no-no. I'm so fascinated by your hair. I take a deep breath. And I'm like, don't do that. And then I'm like, okay, so if you're fascinated, let's have a conversation. But that's not touch. So if I came up to you as a stranger and told you I was fascinated by your hair and start touching, if I didn't look like I looked, would that be okay? Even since I do look like I look, would that be okay? Realize how weird that is and stop. Now, that I'm mad with you, but come on here and sit down. I'm going to talk to you about my hair. Ask any question you want. But know this, when we're done with this conversation, you're buying me a scotch or something. Like that. Ain't got to be no fight. We ain't got to make it about race. Sometimes they're actually trying to be friendly. You don't have to be weird. However, there are times where they do make it weird. And what I'm appreciative of in this spot, in this space, is that when somebody is trying to intentionally be weird or intentionally trying to make me feel uncomfortable, you think I'd be the one to have to body slam them, but no. Don't nobody body slam them necessarily, but they'll 86 them and throw them clean up out of there. But before they do, they tell them about themselves. That's what a true ally do. Now, if you want to be an ally to the people in your workplace, the people in your play places, and your social spaces, sometimes it's just enough to say, no, that's not cute. But some of the reasons why a lot of these people feel so safe to do it, and another reason why I'm not on social media all that much, I'm not doing the scrolling and all that, is because not because they're not beautifully wonderful places and things going on in that. But in between a lot of that, the advertising and all that stuff, and the stuff that I think could be problematic and upsetting for someone who is a developing mind that feeds the goblins out there, that think it's a great idea to arm themselves to the teeth and also give these arms to children and not educate them about kindness, love, and emotional regulation, but just have them constantly listening to vitriol and being afraid of what the government's doing and this person's doing and that person. I'm not saying the government is not slick, it's because they do stuff. But tell me where educate your child based on your own verbiage and your speech about how they shouldn't trust the government lead, and then buying them weapons and having that lead to violence. Tell me how that helps the government not be slick. It don't make one line don't make sense to the other. It don't even lead to the other. It just don't work like that. It just don't. And we can say all we want about our sides, that we pick our sides. But you ain't picking no side other than the side that I want my side to win so I can have the most above somebody else. That's all that is. The truth be told, it's not how it works no more. It's not gonna work like that moving forward. At least that's my hope. At least that's my goal, that's my work. At least part of it. I'm saying these things to you so we can have a purer understanding that we can be the ones who just kind of do the thing. One of us in every group. Two, maybe. I talked about MLK a couple of videos ago, like, when I think I was talking about Gen, I think that's the one that I had titled Gen Z Save Alpha. I think that's the one I talked about it before. Who taught MLK to be that voice? Now, we already know how he went down. Like, for the count. But before he did, though, he was able to speak against a lot of things that was unpopular. Where a lot of folks who are not awful people were so fearful of the outcome of speaking against a lot of that stuff that they didn't speak. Like, I want to live, and I want to live in peace. I don't want to be, hurt, harmed, maimed, all these things. I get it. I get it. I'm going to tell you what that thing is. The purple vibration of love will have you knowing what's going to happen to you and still doing it anyway. I don't recommend it all the time, but sometimes, right now, I'm recommending it to whoever can hear this and understand. Some of you are going to have to start saying some things that make people uncomfortable. Not for the purpose of making them uncomfortable, but for the purposes of shining a light in spaces that lights need to be shined in. Even if you just do it in your community. Be better than me at it, though, because I was like really exhausted and all over the place sometimes and just angry. But that don't mean I didn't solve some problems, though. Proud of myself for that. It didn't benefit me none. But I will tell you, do I regret telling people all? No, I don't. There are times I wish I would have done more. I wish I had the ability to do more. I was tired. I was in fear for my own safety at certain points. I had a lot going on in my personal life. And I don't think I was in the space to really speak in the way that I wanted to speak. I still spoke, though. Sometimes you see the means to say, yeah, sorry, I dropped the phone. If you in a space of anger or trauma or healing, hush until you heal. They was talking about me for sure. But I don't think that's always the case. I don't think sometimes you need to just go ahead and see what you gotta say. Sometimes I think you do. In the moment. Scream from the mountain, the top of a mountaintop. Because even in that pain and suffering that I was experiencing, both in my personal life and in my professional life, people got helped. Not as much as it would have happened if I was able to go through and continue. I don't know what ifs. I don't live in what ifs, honey. I don't live in what if lands. I did at a certain point when I was still at the beginning of my healing and was just angry about it. But sometimes you just need to talk. Like, we can't say nothing, we gonna lose money. We can't do nothing, we ain't gonna get that job. We can't do this because we're gonna get black. Why people have the power to blacklist you in the first place? Figure out who's doing the blacklisting and do something about that. Just saying. Go right at their, not literally, go right at their throats in the verbal way. That's when my advocacy this whole time. Now, do I want to be at the front of the helm or anything? No. At one point I did. But when I tell you, there are times where I do not want to be bothered at this point. I'm telling you the truth. But then there are times where I'm like, you know, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You could be doing more. Plus you're cute. Come on. But I felt in those moments when I don't want to be bothered, I've done enough. I've given enough. I don't want to make the ultimate sacrifice. I don't think most people are worth it. And then I immediately feel bad. Because if nobody else is worth it, humans are worth it. Who else is there? Right? I just see them now. I see people now as babies. All of them are babies. Especially if they're still figuring out life. They haven't figured out a whole bunch of it. Babies. And babies don't know better until you teach them better. Until you love on them right. Because there's not a baby that grows up with hate in their heart. That's a learned thing for sure. I know that's cliche, but it is a learned thing. But also too, fear is also a learned response to stimuli. What I'm talking to you about today is bravery. Courage is different. Some people are born with the courage to do things because they just take leaps of faith because they like the adrenaline rush of it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being apprehensive, nervous, and doing it anyway. I know there's a lot of folks who thought when I was doing that stuff back then that I had courage. I had fire in my belly, but no, I had bravery. I knew and suspected a lot of the things that was going to go down when I opened my mouth, but I still opened my mouth nonetheless. I still do. That does not mean that I'm also not of the understanding that some therapy, and even in these spaces that I'm talking about, is better than zero therapy. And I understand that to be true. While also advocating for these spiritual woo-woo people, who some of whom are also great helpers, to remain ethical as they're practicing. Because if you're gonna call it sacred, we can't also use it to manipulate and harm people. This is why I was in the dark in the first place. That's why I was in the dark corners and not respected in the first place, because a lot of you was being unethical in the past. It's hard to pin it down when you don't know who's going to be taking advantage of who. Who's going to make someone's mental and physical wellness worse. So it's kind of hard to advocate for that sometimes. Even though I know there's a lot of great practitioners out there who do have the goal, the common goal of community and helping others, and are great at their job, competent at their job. And I would probably send them over a therapist. But it's not enough that I know of that are like that. Now I'm sure they're present, and I know, I'm sure they're around the country and the globe. But I don't personally know them. Okay? So what I know is that there's an organization, the National Counseling Association, that we can find the counselors. Now, if we can find ethical practitioners, or we can come together like some kind of council on Nicaea and create some ethics and create a board in which we know what we is and we ain't gonna do to our communities at large, and why it's beneficial and why some things are harmful. And when we can come together and do that, maybe we can be on par with some of these other helping professionals. But until then, it's still sometimes a joke. And that's what I don't want. I'm not nobody's joke. I worked hard for every degree I got, and I worked hard for every level of spirituality and divination that I've learned. I refuse to be anybody's joke, and I refuse to use it in a way that is unbecoming of the work that I put into it. This is me holding myself accountable. I'm asking you to hold yourselves accountable. Do something about some of this stuff. Anyway, I talked at y'all for 50 minutes. I'll talk to y'all again soon. You're loved.